Gabriel Fernandez was a sweet, 8-year-old boy who liked to help others. This is the tragic case of Gabriel Fernandez. The tragic case of Gabriel Fernandez is one of the most heartbreaking and disturbing examples of child abuse in modern times. Gabriel, an 8-year-old boy from Palmdale, California, was subjected to months of horrifying abuse by his mother, Gabriel Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Isauro Aguirre. Their sustained and deliberate acts of violence eventually led to Gabriel's death on May 24, 2013. This case is not just about the unimaginable cruelty inflicted on a child, but also about the systemic failures that allowed the abuse to continue unchecked, despite multiple warning signs. A heartfelt tribute to Gabriel Fernandez. Gabriel Fernandez was a child full of life and love. His teachers and family members recall him as a sweet and innocent boy who, despite his struggles, wanted nothing more than to be loved and accepted. He looked for kindness, but instead, his short life was marked by unspeakable pain and torment. Today, we gather not only to mourn the loss of Gabriel, but also to honor his memory by raising awareness of the horrors he endured. By speaking out, we hope to prevent similar tragedies from happening to other vulnerable children. The abuse Gabriel suffered wasn't hidden, it was visible and documented, yet time after time, the system that was supposed to protect him failed him. Over the course of 8 months, Gabriel Fernandez and Isauro Aguirre subjected Gabriel to a level of abuse that is difficult to comprehend.
Well, that's right. The district attorney's office says it is seeking the death penalty both for the mother and the boyfriend involved in the death of 10-year-old Anthony Avalos. Prosecutors are alleging that the boy was severely tortured during the last 5 or 6 days of his life. Here you can see in court Heather Barron and Kareem Lavo. They were both there this morning. The deputy district attorney, John Hatami, told the court that they're looking for the death penalty because they say there was extensive abuse. Prosecutors say Avalos was at times whipped with a belt and cords, and court documents reveal that Anthony's injuries stretched from his head to his toes, and there were bruises and abrasions and a traumatic brain injury.
The abuse in detail, a crime beyond words. Gabriel was beaten, burned, shot with BB guns, and forced to eat spoiled food or cat litter. He was often locked in a small cabinet, gagged and bound, where he slept. The physical torture was relentless. He had broken ribs, teeth knocked out, and BB pellets lodged in his body. His skull was fractured, and his skin bore the marks of prolonged abuse, burns, bruises, cuts, and scars that told a story of relentless torment. The abuse wasn't limited to physical violence. Gabriel was emotionally and psychologically tormented as well. He was called derogatory names, humiliated, and forced to wear girls' clothes. Aguirre and Pearl believed Gabriel was gay, and much of the abuse stemmed from this twisted perception. Gabriel was ridiculed and made to feel worthless, his spirit broken as much as his body. The emotional abuse culminated in Gabriel's heartbreaking question to his teacher, which resonates with everyone who has heard it. Why doesn't my mom love me? This single question reveals the profound emotional scars Gabriel carried, scars that were just as devastating as the physical wounds. Systemic failures, a cry for help unheard. Gabriel's story is not just one of personal tragedy, it is also a stark reminder of the systemic failures that allowed his suffering to continue. Numerous reports were made to social services about Gabriel's abuse. His teacher, Jennifer Garcia, reported signs of abuse multiple times after noticing bruises, burns, and Gabriel's increasingly fearful behavior. She also noticed Gabriel eating scraps of food from the trash because he was being starved at home. Despite these reports, the authorities failed to intervene. Social workers visited the home but left Gabriel in the care of his abusers. The Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, repeatedly ignored or downplayed the reports of abuse. They closed cases, claimed insufficient evidence, and allowed Gabriel to return to the environment where he was being tortured. In the end, the system chose to turn a blind eye, leaving Gabriel vulnerable and alone in his suffering. days, a last cry for help. On May 22nd, 2013, Gabriel was found unconscious in his home. He had been brutally beaten by Aguirre, with Pearl's complicity. His injuries were so severe that doctors were unable to save him, and 2 days later, Gabriel was pronounced dead. An autopsy revealed the full extent of the horrors Gabriel endured in the months leading up to his death. His small body was covered in injuries, including a fractured skull, broken ribs, burn marks, and embedded BB pellets. Gabriel had been subjected to prolonged and systematic abuse, and his final moments were filled with pain and fear. The details of Gabriel's autopsy are difficult to hear, but they are important to understand the full scope of the abuse. His body bore signs of both fresh and healed injuries, showing that the abuse had been ongoing for months. The BB pellets found in his lungs and groin were a chilling reminder of the sadistic nature of the violence inflicted upon him. Gabriel's skull had been fractured by the force of Aguirre's blows, and his ribs had been repeatedly broken, likely from being kicked and stomped on. The pursuit of justice, Gabriel Fernandez and Isauro Aguirre. Following Gabriel's death, both Gabriel Fernandez and Isauro Aguirre were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Aguirre, who was responsible for the most severe physical abuse, was convicted and sentenced to death in 2018. Gabriel Fernandez pleaded guilty to her role in Gabriel's death and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Their sentencing brought some measure of justice, but it could not erase the suffering Gabriel endured. The trial revealed the full extent of the horror that Gabriel faced, and the courtroom heard graphic descriptions of the abuse. Witnesses, including Gabriel's teacher, family members, and medical professionals, testified about the signs of abuse that were overlooked. The case shocked the nation and led to widespread outrage over how such abuse could have gone unchecked for so long. Before moving in with his mother and her boyfriend Gabriel Fernandez and Isauro Aguirre in 2012. He had previously lived with an uncle and his grandparents. Early footage of Gabriel while he lived with his uncle depicts a happy and healthy child. It has been reported that his mother only took him in 2012 in order to gain welfare benefits. For 8 months, Gabriel was subjected to physical and mental abuse. He was often called gay and punished for exhibiting perceived female traits like playing with dolls, according to testimonies by his own siblings, in addition to being beaten on several occasions. He was often forced to eat cat litter, rotten spinach, and his own vomit. He was also tied up and gagged inside a torture box. At school, his teachers noticed all was not well with Gabriel, who would ask questions such as if it was normal to be hit with belt buckles and if it was normal to bleed. After school, authorities reported the child's condition to the La Combe Department of Children and Family Services. A social worker was assigned to his case. The social worker failed to remove Gabriel from the unsafe environment as time went by. School authorities began to notice fresh wounds, including bruises on his body, injuries to his lips as a result of punches, bruises on his scalp, and patches of hair missing. Bruises on Gabriel's face were determined to be as a result of his mother shooting him with a BB gun. On May 22, 2013, a call was made to 911 by Gabriel's mother to report that her son was not breathing. On arrival, paramedics found Gabriel with broken ribs, BB pellets stuck in his body, and a cracked skull. It was immediately clear to emergency responders that there had been severe abuse. Gabriel was declared brain dead upon being taken to the hospital, and he died on May 24, 2013. Holding the system accountable, the aftermath. Gabriel's death sparked a nationwide conversation about child protection and the failures of the DCFS. In the aftermath of his murder, 4 social workers were criminally charged for their role in failing to protect Gabriel. Although the charges were later dismissed, the case highlighted the urgent need for reform within the child welfare system. It became clear that the existing system was ill-equipped to handle cases of severe abuse, and that the warning signs were often ignored or minimized. Gabriel's case led to changes in how child abuse cases are reported and investigated in Los Angeles County. However, the pain of knowing that Gabriel's death could have been prevented continues to weigh heavily on those who followed his story. His death serves as a stark reminder that more must be done to protect vulnerable children from the kind of horror Gabriel experienced. Conclusion, a call to action in Gabriel's name. As we reflect on the life and death of Gabriel Fernandez, we must acknowledge the failures that led to this tragedy. Gabriel's story is one that should haunt us all, a story of a child who was failed at every turn, both by the people who were supposed to care for him and by the system that was supposed to protect him. But in remembering Gabriel, we must also find the strength to fight for change. His death cannot be in vain. We must demand accountability from the systems that failed him, and we must ensure that no other child suffers the same fate. Gabriel's story is a call to action, a call to strengthen child protective services, to ensure that reports of abuse are taken seriously, and to protect the most vulnerable members of our society. Gabriel Fernandez was a child who deserved love, kindness, and protection. Instead, he was subjected to cruelty and abuse that no human being should ever endure. Today, we honor his memory by vowing to do better for Gabriel and for all the children like him who are still waiting for someone to hear their cries for help. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell.